Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am joined by Andy Williams. He is the EVP of Sales over at Exotec North America, and we're going to hear all about Exotec, their technology, how they're serving the warehousing and fulfillment market, and kind of some of the differences too in their technology and some of the benefits there, and what they're seeing as the kind of the future of fulfillment and operations. So, Andy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Definitely happy to have you on. We haven't talked to Exotec before on the show, so definitely always happy to talk to a new technology, new solution out there and learn more about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Exotec and kind of what it is that you guys do?
Yeah, Exotec is a warehouse robotics company. Mm-hmm. Really, ASRS robotics is at our core. We were founded in 2015 in France. Lille, France is our global headquarters. Okay. And since that time, we've expanded across the globe. We're now in 4 major markets: Western Europe, Central Europe, North America, Asia, over 10 countries. And we've done a wide variety of work in a pretty broad range of industries with some of the leading brands in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm responsible for sales, engineering, business development in North America. Exotec came to North America in 2019, and since that time, we've done a little over 20 projects in North America, with our SkyPod solution being the main feature of many of those projects.
Interesting. Okay. And certainly it's a kind of a different approach, I think, to the ASRS solution that we've seen from some other providers that are out there and doing similar kind of things in a way. But I'm curious your background. I mean, you spent a lot of time around warehouse automation and robotics, right? You've been at Adabotics, I think, SSI, Schaefer, I saw Vondelon too, I think, for a little bit as well. And so, I'm curious from your background and, looking at the Exotec solution. I mean, what kind of drew you to the solution and what was really kind of interesting about the mission of Exotec for you?
Great question. So, warehouse automation in general, and more specifically ASRS automation, has an interesting history over the past 20, 25 years. Yeah. When you look at cartons and eaches specifically, it all started with mini loads, with carousels. A lot of the European heritage integrators, OEM integrators like Vondelanda and Schaefer that I worked for, took it to another level with shuttles and were able to achieve a lot better performance, throughput, storage density. And about 7, 8 years ago, arguably before then, if you look at the Kiva story, things started to change a little bit, and robotics became more and more advanced, more and more available to the market, and distribution center design started to change, supply chain started to change a little bit, and it became evident that robotics was really the future of automation and warehousing. And that's for many different reasons, but just robotics in general and warehousing is much more flexible. You can kind of build for capacity as you go. You can often achieve things with robotics that just aren't possible in either a manual environment or in a fixed automation environment. And so, looking at the industry and the trends, that's certainly where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at Exotec and what Exotec is able to do, I would say first and foremost, I would be remiss without mentioning the culture of Exotec is probably the number one reason I came.
Oh,
it's
nice.
a really outstanding group across the globe, some brilliant people. And that group was able to create a set of really revolutionary technologies for warehousing automation. Mm. And at the centerpiece of that is the SkyPod solution. And, if you understand ASRS, there are a lot of different benefits that are fundamental to goods to person technologies, right? Reduced walking and improved operator ergonomics. Those are largely similar across the whole entire set of solutions. But what makes Exotec different is purely from a technology standpoint, we have an incredibly dense system, and a high throughput system.
Yeah.
But it's really more so the flexibility of the design. And so it's incredibly simple. In my past, we did some amazing systems that really helped customers out. And those were supported by intense, what I call fixed automation pieces.
Right.
So conveyor front zones, lots of PLC cabinets, that sort of thing. When you look at Exotec solution, we have one robot in our SkyPod system that is moving not only in the XYZ direction inside the rack, but is also an AMR. So it's able to get out of the rack and go to any point that is inside the system boundary for either inbound goods or outbound goods. So that provides tremendous opportunity when you're looking at how to design systems, how to help customers solve their challenges. And it's just remarkably simple. And there's no electricity in the rack. There really is only this one moving part. And I think the hardest things are often, it's difficult to do hard things very simply, I should say.
Yeah.
and we've managed to do that at Exotec. And it's really resonated. So it's differentiated, I think, in that way specifically, and really in what it can let companies accomplish, not only inside the warehouse, but in their supply chain. That's where we've seen some of the biggest and best business cases for customers.
Interesting stuff. And I think, it's a very good point there. It's hard to make something that's kind of difficult in the grand scheme of things in a kind of a simplified way. And it's really interesting to hear that. And so now talk a little bit about, I'm interested to hear more about this. I've seen some demo videos and things like that on Exotec, but the SkyPod itself, you're saying is essentially will go between racks as like a normal shuttle would in an ASRS. But is also then detaching from the rack to become an AMR too. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Yeah, you've got it. So it's any SKU to any location. We can do totes as well as cartons. And from a mechanical standpoint, the way it works is there is a rack, and it's just a rack. It's not electrified in any way. And the robots, the SkyPod robots, can climb up into the rack and deposit a tote and retrieve another tote. And they can bring those totes or cartons to any location. And they do it very, very rapidly. So a big part of the system is its dynamic capability. And you can envision that if we drop an order from a website into the system and we need to get, let's say, 2 or 3 order lines to a specific point to complete a small e-com order, we can do all that in less than 5 minutes, irrespective to the system size. So very responsive. And in other markets like retail or CPG, we see some other characteristics of the system kicking in, which is our ability to sequence, at the line level, at the order level. If we're looking at how to build a reverse stop sequence route for a truck, and we also need to build a sequenced pallet, and we also need to be able to sequence the lines inside a carton, this design enables you to do all of that. And it frees you from many of the constraints that were present in the past for conveyor-based solutions, for what I would call legacy shuttle solutions, even those that crossed between aisles. So the software and the algorithms that drive the robots are really the key to all of that. They're able to sequence flows, determine the next best mission for any individual robot. And in that same way, there's another pretty remarkable achievement, which is the uptime of the system. I should say, rather, the reliability. So one thing that's certainly differentiated about Exotec is we guarantee the reliability of the system contractually with our customers. And one of the big reasons we're able to do that is that there's no single point of failure. So if we do ever have an issue with a robot, it can just be either driven out remotely of the system, or the worst case, handled in between shifts, and still have access to all of the goods. So this, back to this theme of doing difficult things in a very simple way, lots of different benefits for different industries, and just in general, smarter design for goods to person picking.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an interesting design, and I love the fact that it can come off the rack essentially and move without the rack, as you mentioned, is kind of being dependent on that in a sense, and also the ability to, as you said, if there's an issue or something like that, it can come off, and there's no limited access or anything like that. I've worked with some shuttle systems in the past in my career, and I mean, when there's like a jam or something, like that's it for that tower, basically, right? You're not getting in.
Yeah. I mean,
anything out. Yeah.
I fought those issues my whole career. If we have a conveyor jam on the front zone, just as one example, can shut 4 or 5 aisles of shuttle down.
Yeah.
And very impactful to the system. So it's really dramatically different in terms of the way it impacts operations. And the biggest part, and I alluded to that earlier, is not even really just what happens inside the warehouse, how efficient it is with storage. It is very dense, or throughput, it's high picking performance, but it's really what it lets you do in your supply chain. And so if you can have the same amount of SKUs and throughput in 50% of the space, obviously you can put the warehouse in a different location for the same amount of money.
Right.
And that has impacts in terms of, being closer to manufacturing, closer to customers. If I need to be able to sequence a truck in that same footprint, then you start to realize rather quickly there really aren't options out there to do that manually or even with other types of automation. So it is something where, a lot of our customers are looking at, hey, I can use this technology to really kind of reinvent my supply chain or gain a competitive advantage, in addition to, just the classic ROI that many of us are used to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. I mean, being able to, like you said, utilize a smaller space but still get the same kind of capacity out of it and throughput gives you a lot of flexibility on that location, real estate wise as well, which can make a big difference one way or the other. Whether you mention the manufacturing or being closer to the consumer, I think is really an important thing. I'm curious, Bo, but Exotec, I mean, obviously, typically when solutions are created and things like this, there was some kind of pain point in somebody's life, right? So I'm curious, like, where did Exotec where did it kind of birth from? I mean, like, what was the idea behind creating Exotec? I mean, did somebody have like a bad experience with another ASRS or something like, how come this kind of technology developed and evolved from where it began?
Yeah, I think several companies in the warehouse robotics industry share a little bit of the same origin story.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon purchased Kiva,
right,
and it left a bit of a void in terms of what was available in the market at that time. And Kiva did, to their credit, I think, make a lot of people realize that robotics goods to person was different. Right. It didn't have the same capability set as the modern solutions, but when it left the market and left it being available for companies, it spurred a lot of people, including our co-founders, to say, hey, we think we can fill this void and not only fill it, but do it in a much smarter way.
Yeah.
And our co-founders, they had a lot of experience in robotics and some in warehousing, but they're both from GE.
Oh, interesting.
I think the experience that influenced them the most, from what I can see and what I've learned in talking to them, is they became, during the course of that experience, obsessed with making products, perfect products.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the mantras inside Exotec is almost pass is fail. And I think that's how the company was able to establish a really successful solution. So something that works, it's not only in a lab, it's not only in a prototype stage at a customer, but it's that obsession with product and with testing, and having really one solution that works for everybody, but is in a highly configurable way. And we have over 100 projects completed globally now. And like I mentioned, 20 or so in the US, and they're all running the same software. The core solution for all of those projects is the exact same, and yet it's serving many different industries and lots of different configurable applications inside those projects and systems as well.
Very interesting.
That's kind of the story, though. I mean, it started really with the Kiva gap, and then an obsession about product and doing things in a smart but very, very simple and elegant way.
Very interesting. And definitely a lot of great companies have come out of that kind of Kiva gap. I had Bruce Welty actually was our first guest ever on the podcast, and he tells that whole story. But very interesting stuff there. And I think it is really interesting too. I mean, kind of taking the idea of ASRS too and giving a little more flexibility to it, I think, than you would typically see. And I'm curious, from like a shipper perspective or a brand perspective, 3PL perspective, whichever the case. I mean, if we're looking at, what's the right fit for Exotec? I mean, what type of customer or goods would be the right kind of fit to put in an Exotec solution?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, great question. So the most fundamental answer is it should fit inside the system. So we don't have inside the SkyPod system, obviously, pallets. It's built around the principle of totes and cartons.
Right.
So we handle totes and cartons, and a certain percentage of the products should fit into the system to really realize the benefit. It's okay if some of them don't, but a certain percentage should. And the second part is you need at least I would say a minimum of 500 to 1,000 order lines per hour in order for Exotec to start to be a really good fit and a really good investment. And the top side of that is really unlimited. And we can do systems that are 20,000 order lines an hour and really any amount of storage. But that's kind of where you start to see the justification for Exotec is around that range. And I think those are the main things that you can think about. There are a lot of other kind of macro issues. If you're having labor challenges, of course, that's a big one. Space constraints, right? There are a lot of different criteria and benefits, some of which are common amongst ASRS or robotics ASRS in general.
Yeah. But
certainly, there are some very unique things that Exotec can bring to the table. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that, we're talking a lot about the SkyPod system, rightfully so. And I think the SkyPod is what I call an orchestration engine. So it lets you do a lot of these things that weren't possible before in terms of sequencing or fast response, high performance and storage density combination. But that's not all we do. So we have very powerful software that drives the whole thing. It's called Deep Sky, and it extends into the warehouse. So we have a warehouse execution system, warehouse control system as well. And we can use that software to interface with any number of third-party machines, whether that's depalletizing robots, palletizing robots, carton erection machines, conveyor systems, and provide a comprehensive solution for the whole warehouse, not just for the ASRS system itself.
Very interesting. And I think that makes a lot of sense to know that and, what the right fit would be. But it sounds like it's pretty wide range of what could utilize Exotec's SkyPod system and also the software there as well. I mean, from that perspective, do you see, because there's a lot going on in the market around the warehouse execution system. So I'm curious, what was the thinking behind like Exotec creating their own WES versus like integrating with a third party one or something of that nature?
Yeah. And to be clear, we've done both. We've done a lot of both.
Okay.
We come to market directly, but also through integrators. So for instance, High-Tech in North America is a big integrator for Exotec. They've done a great job implementing their WES and WCS system. The reason that we developed our own as well is there are customers and projects where it just makes sense for us to provide the entire solution directly. And when you think about what it means, the hard part arguably is the WCS that's inside the SkyPod system. So managing all of the traffic, the flow of material, order management, the sequencing, all of those robot missions, that's pretty tough. And when you get that down, it's really a natural and relatively easy extension, right, to go into the other parts of the warehouse. So if we need to have a remote decant operation, just as an example, we can extend the software to manage the decant operation. Or if it's shipping for e-com and we need to be able to weigh and apply labels and rate shop, we can do that with the system. So it's just been, I think, a logical extension for us, and it's really all about managing the flow inside the warehouse. And when we're delivering the majority of the value of the system directly from our own products, then it really kind of makes sense typically for us to do it.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to see, and I love to like the flexibility there. Like you said, you can utilize, the Exotec system or an integrator system or whichever the case may be, whatever is the best fit for the project, I would imagine, which makes a lot of sense. And now I'm curious too about collaboration in this space, because I saw on the website, there's a video where I'm also using like a robotic picking arm that's picking out of the tote and things like that. So tell us a little bit about how Exotec can work with other automation or robotic solutions as well, and how you kind of view that whole, I guess, interoperability thing, integration thing around kind of the robotics automation market right now?
Yeah. So for robotic piece picking itself, which is certainly a big trend, needless to say.
Yes. Yeah.
We have invested several years ago in our own solution. So we have a really powerful piece picking robot. So, and all of the associated elements that go with that. And so it's AI, I say empowered really in the sense that we're using machine vision to be able to pick the widest range of goods possible. And it's using reinforcement learning to do that, and improving every day there. In terms of other solutions, we don't have everything, right? And we don't really intend to make everything ourselves. And so we've designed our software in a very easy way in terms of how it can interface to other machines and other software systems inside the warehouse. So we use a REST API, and it lets us connect while maintaining our software's core as standard code to any number of machines that are in the warehouse. And so we want to be very easy to integrate with. And so what does that mean? Typically, it can mean depalletizing robots, palletizing robots. It certainly can mean carton erection machines. It can mean any sort of different conveyor system, including sortation. But it's very important from our standpoint to, number one, be able to provide a comprehensive solution. And I'd say number two, be very easy to integrate with, and to do it all in a way that is part of our standard software offering. So we don't end up with a code base that is not supportable globally.
Right.
And so we've had a big focus on how to do that across the globe. And I think to this point, we've been really successful, which sometimes means saying no to customers or to certain people that want to do it a little bit of a different way, but we're constantly evolving it. So we're adding to the features inside Deep Sky all the time. And really just with the configuration that you put into the software now, it's easy not only to connect to other machines in the warehouse, but also to perform a really wide range of logistics functions.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's great too that you guys are open to kind of that collaboration, integration, as a sense with multiple other solutions, and that you're building for that as well. Because I think increasingly as we see more and more solutions come onto the market, the consumer is going to want to have more and more optionality right throughout their operation. They're going to want maybe Exotec for storage, and then they're going to want something else for, like you said, palletizing, and something else for robotic picking, or something of that nature. I mean, so you want to be able to be diverse in those solutions. So it's really great that you guys are embracing that mindset too. So very interesting to learn about this, this SkyPod and Deep Sky as well, the software there. But as we kind of look to the future of things, I mean, what is the vision for Exotec, and how does Exotec kind of grow into the future?
Yeah, our stated goal is to be the number one warehouse robotics provider globally. And I think we will have a very consistent strategy where we focus on our core products. There's a tremendous market out there, and I think focusing on our core is key to keep on improving it and just maintaining a really strong customer focus with that core set of products. So hardware and software. But we're continuing to I think go into not only more projects but bigger projects. Projects in different industries. Some industries as well are behind significantly.
Right.
So didn't really have this massive amount of automation done in the past 15, 20 years for good reason, and still have, either manual operations or convey and sort operations. So we're seeing some big opportunities to go into some of those industries, and with a new and fresh take on what's possible being able to penetrate those industries. So, I think we'll get there by continuing to focus on our core, enhance our products. I think we'll continue to operate globally and see some natural growth there. And the size of our projects is going to continue to increase. And we're constantly investing in R&D. We really, compared to traditional automation providers, are investing probably 3 to 4 times as much in R&D. So, in addition to that core, we're constantly working to say, what's the next smartest thing to do? And so I think you'll see more product development from Exotec, and we really want to stay at the forefront of robotics and warehousing in general. Right. It is a competitive landscape. There's no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if anybody went to ProMat this year, you would walk in and know right away. It's incredibly competitive, and there's many options out there at the moment. So it'd be really great to see how you guys continue to evolve. And I think, it has a really smart technology and solution that you have put together, and certainly, the flexibility there and the ability to collaborate and work with other sides as well makes a lot of sense. So really interesting talking to you, Andy, and learning more about Exotec and the solution there. I think it's really interesting to see, and we'll continue to see how it evolves in the marketplace as well. So if people are interested in learning more about Exotec, what's the best way to do that?
They can just go to our website and click the button, and they'll be able to contact us immediately. Exotec.com.
All right, great. And we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So Andy, thank you so much for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.